That's part of manifesting. The more we give to people, the more we receive, the more we get back in return. Hello, everybody. I wanted to come to you live today and give you a little insight or just tell you what really cool manifesting occurred this past weekend. I teach people how to manifest reality and how to create the future you desire. And what I did this weekend when I went out with my wife and me, I actually manifested $400 from out of nowhere in cash, which was just completely amazing, blew my wife's mind, and I just wanted to share that story with you. It happened when her and I went out. It was one of those things, everything has to happen in the exact way that it has to happen for everything to play out the way it has to play out. So we decided late on Saturday night that we wanted to go out and grab a couple drinks and something we normally don't do that late at night, but we decided to head to a local place that we typically go to. And for whatever reason, at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, this local bar was closed, which it never closes early. So we thought, well, that's crazy. That's weird. Anyway, so we went down the street to a different bar. And while we were at this bar, I meet this guy. I'm outside talking, and I meet this older gentleman, and we get to talking. Super nice, friendly guy, right? And get to talking with him and find out that he's been in prison before. He was talking to another guy about cell block. He was in cell block 2, and this other guy was in cell block 4. And so I sparked up a conversation with him. And next thing you know, he's telling me that his wife of 20 years, they just decided to separate 3 days ago because she had gotten addicted or fallen back into drugs, whatever the case may be. He wasn't having any more of it. So he decided that he was going to leave her. And as I'm listening to his story and he's talking to me, he starts to get teary-eyed. He starts to really lose it because he's so sad. He's so upset about what's been going on in his life. And as I'm talking through this with him, and it gets to the point where he starts to cry, this is a complete and total stranger, in his 70s. He starts crying over this, and all I could do at that moment in time was just to simply put my arms around him and hug him, and just hugged him and told him everything's going to be all right. Said, I love you, man. I love you. And it's all going to be okay. Let it out. And he just cried and cried harder in my arms. And I just kept holding him and holding him until he was finally getting, over it and finally catching himself. And we didn't care. There were people in the bar. They were watching. Who cared what they thought? But the fact was, I just held this guy in a moment when he needed it the most, when he needed to feel another person's connection, another person understanding what he was going through. And I just allowed myself to feel what he was feeling, to have that compassion with him and understanding for him, that I saw him, that I felt him, that I understood what he was going through. And everything after that, everything was great. He felt relieved. He felt amazing. We continued talking, and I was telling him about my wife, April, her and I's company. And this guy from out of nowhere is just like, you know what? I'm investing in your company because I love who you are. I love who you stand, what you stand for. And he said, I I don't even care. I haven't met you. I don't even know what company you have. He said, I'm investing in you and your wife's company. I haven't even met your wife yet. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you hear this from people like, okay, sure you are. Come to find out, that's what he does for a living now. He's retired, and apparently he has a ton of money, and he goes around and just helps companies and helps people, helps companies, invests in them, angel investor, whatever you want to call it. But this is what this guy does for a living. And I keep talking with him, and my wife finally comes outside. So I say, "Oh my gosh, you've got to meet my wife. Here she is." And they got to talking, and had a spoke for probably a good 20, 30 minutes. And at that point, the bar was closing down. It was time to go home. So we walk outside with this guy, still not knowing truly who he is. We exchanged phone numbers and said he wanted to help us out. So we're walking out the door, and lo and behold, he pulls up, or he walks right over to his car, which was parked right in the front of the bar there. And it's a sports car Mercedes convertible, like really nice Mercedes that he hops into and puts the top down. And we keep talking with him and everything. And we're calling it a night and just saying, "Hey, I'll get in touch with you this week. It was such a pleasure to meet you." And we start to walk through the parking lot at that point to our car. And that's when he pulls up to the side of us with his top down and asks my wife, says, "April, come over here. I want to give you something." And I'm unlocking the car, looking back, watching, and he whispers something to her, and all I hear her go is, "Oh my God." And she turns around as he's driving off, and she's got tears in her eyes, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe what just happened." And I said, "What? What happened?" And she holds up her hand, and the guy that we had just met, that had cried in my arms, he had gotten into his glove compartment and pulled out a wad of $100 bills and counted them off. One, two, three, four. Gave April, put it in her hands, and gave her $400 in cash. Grabbed her hands like this, said, "I love you. You guys, thank you. Be safe. Good night." And drove off to be never to be seen from again at this point. But the point is, $400 just poof appeared and manifested into my wife's hands from out of nowhere, all because I took the time to listen to this guy at the bar who needed to share his pain, needed to share and get this off of his chest, whatever the stress he was feeling, the sadness he was feeling. And I was there to, at the right place at the right time, to listen to him, to have compassion for him, and to truly feel. And I gave him, like I said, I gave him that big hug, and I just held him, and I wouldn't let him go until he cried it all out. And I felt like, because I gave that level of compassion and I gave myself over to him to help him in his moment of need, it turned right around, and he gave us $400 in cash from out of nowhere, something completely unexpected. So, in our journeys, as we manifest and as we learn to control our powers and create the the world we want to see, remember to create from love, create from compassion. Everybody has a story. Everybody wants to be heard. And a lot of people are hurting out there. A lot of people hide their pain. And it's up to us as the manifestors, as the creators, to feel that compassion for people, to love our fellow brothers and sisters in a way that we've never loved before, and to see the true soul that it is. Like I said, I didn't know this guy from anything. He says, "Oh, I want to invest in your company." This is before, you know, this is after he'd already cried to me. But the point was, I didn't know this guy for anything, and I was willing to be vulnerable and allow him to be vulnerable and allow him to just share his emotions. And in doing so, it opened up a door of possibility for us and created $400 poof, just like that. And it was such an amazing moment that all of the stars had to have aligned. If we would have went to that other bar that we typically would have went to that evening, we never would have met this man. And because it closed for who knows what reason on a Saturday night, which is so unheard of, but because they did that, it forced us to another location, another bar. And in turn, I was introduced to this gentleman who, by making his day a little bit brighter, he made my day and my wife's day so much unbelievably brighter because we were just so blown away at the kindness of this man. It's the you give and you shall receive principle. That's part of manifesting. The more we give to people, the more we receive, the more we get back in return. So the real key here of all of this is compassion, love, give, give, give. Give more than you ever expect to get back, and the return to you will be tenfold. It will be reciprocated so much more than you could ever imagine. And it's all about opening yourself up to the possibilities that this is the way the universe works. This is how it's all designed. Once we get out of our own heads, once we get out of the ego that's driving us, and we get into the present, we get into the present of others, of this whole amazing universe around us, and we live in that present moment of love and compassion and forgive others for they know not what they've done. We are all brothers, we're all sisters, we're all one in the same. And when we start to open ourselves up to that sort of love, that sort of compassion, crazy, amazing, unbelievable things can start to happen. And it's just about allowing it to come to us. So that's the story I wanted to share today, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll talk to you guys soon.